Hello friends, the impact of Rohingyas crisis which is going on in Myanmar is visible on India also, and many of them have fled from Myanmar to India. So today we will analyze the conventions and the laws which are applicable to refugees and the associated issues. If you want to download the slide, the link is there in the description box. If you want to listen to this video in Hindi, then you can go to our another channel, that is prepezee. The link is there again in the description box. So the context is that many of the issues related to Rohingya refugees who are held up in the detention centers, all the holding centers, they have come up. For example, some time ago, an infant who was just 5 months old had died in one of the holding centers in Jammu. Now authorities, they resorted to tear gas shelling in the holding center despite the directive by experts that tear gas shells should not be deployed in the closed spaces. So these issues, they have come to light, and we have to understand that what are the acts, what are the laws which are pertaining to the asylum seekers or refugees in a country. So first let us understand that who are Rohingyas and what is the crisis which is going on regarding the Rohingyas. See, Rohingyas, they were residents of the Rakhine state in Myanmar. In 2017, the authorities, they started attacking the Rohingya residents in the Rakhine state. So they started fleeing from there, from the place of their natural habitat, and they started fleeing to the neighboring countries. For example, they went to India, they went to Bangladesh, many of them, they also went to even Australia. So 7.7 lakh of these Rohingyas, they have now fled from their own country. And it is said that approximately 20,000 of them are in India. We have to understand that Rohingyas are persecuted minorities. They are not illegal immigrants. What is the difference? The difference is that persecuted minorities or refugees or asylum seekers, they are the people who cannot return to their home owing to their safety. They are being religiously persecuted, or they are being persecuted for some other reason in their home state. Therefore, they have to go to some other state and they do not have any option. On the other hand, illegal immigrants are people who have a safe place which they can call home. But then again, they go to some other place in search of work or better opportunities. So there is a difference. The refugees do not have an option, but immigrants, they have an option. They can go back to their home state. So please understand the difference. Now in the context of that, let us understand that what are the laws which are applicable to the refugees. First, let us see the international laws. See, there are two major international laws. First is 1951 Refugee Convention, which is a part of United Nations, and then is the 1967 Protocol, which made an amendment to this 1951 Refugee Convention. So basically, first you have to understand that 146 of the countries, they are party to the 1951 Convention, and 147 of them are party to the 1967 Protocol. But India is not one of them. India has not signed the Refugee Convention of 1951 or 1967 Protocol. The Refugee Convention, it defines that what are the basic rights of refugees, what are the obligation of states, and even the obligation of refugees living in a foreign country. It defines the refugees. In fact, it goes on to say that any particular social group which has been persecuted due to reasons of race, for example, the Jews who were persecuted by Hitler, religion, for example, we have heard news that Hindus are being persecuted in Pakistan, nationality, membership of a social group, or even just a political opinion against the establishment. If they have been driven outside, any person or a social group, if they have been driven outside of the nation, of their nationality, and they are unwilling to return to that country because of some kind of fear to their life or liberty, these people are called refugees. In fact, later declarations, later agreements, and later other whatever instruments came on, they built on this definition. They gave other reasons that why someone might be forced to become a refugee. For example, 1984 Cartagena Declaration, it said that apart from the other reasons, even generalized violence, foreign aggression, internal conflicts, massive violation of human rights, and other disturbances to public order might also make a person refugee and might lead the person to go to some other country to fight for their survival and to go in search of some better opportunities. So the 1951 Refugee Convention, the guardian of this document is UNHCR. And the core principle of this convention is non-refoulement. What do we mean by this? Non-refoulement simply means that if someone is not willing to return to their country because of a threat to their life or threat to their liberty or freedom, then no country who is a party to this 1951 convention would make them forcefully return to their home country. The document, that is 1951 convention, it also gives them certain basic rights. The refugees, they are entitled to certain basic rights. For example, right to life, right to housing, right to basic work, right to basic education. See, we have to understand that without any mistake of theirs, the refugees or the asylum seekers, they are being persecuted. They are not criminals. They have not done any crime. And despite that, they have to flee their homes. Therefore, these are people who have not committed any mistake and yet they are left to their destiny. They are not having any protection. They are not even having the basic rights which are guaranteed to every individual by virtue of them being humans. Therefore, it is a duty of international community. It is the obligation of any nation to protect them and to provide them with a basic, dignified, independent life. And that is why certain basic rights are provided to them also. Then there is 1967 protocol. See, India is again not a signatory. What is the difference between 1951 convention and 1961 protocol? See, 1951 convention, when it was made, it was in relation to the refugees who had become refugees in the context of Second World War. They were facing persecution in their homes and therefore they had to flee their homes because of the reasons associated with the Second World War. However, later on it was realized that it is not just the World War but also other reasons. For example, the domestic conflicts against any particular race or particular religion or any other social group may also lead someone to leave their homes. Therefore, in 1967, particularly on 4th of October, another protocol was adopted which made an amendment to 1951 Refugee Convention. This amendment removed the geographic and time limitations. That is, no one would be considered a refugee just because of being a person who has been forced to flee because of the Second World War. There was no such limitation now. Anyone who was forced to flee their homes because of any reason would now be considered a refugee. Therefore, the definition of refugee would apply universally and it would be used to protect everyone who is facing any kind of conflict and persecution. Now, since India is not a signatory, then what is the laws which is applicable to the refugee and asylum seekers in India? It is the Foreigners Act 1946. See, basically this is a domestic law and it is having provisions which are there for refugees as well as asylum seekers. It provides them certain basic rights. But in the context of this article which we are reading today and which we are understanding about Rohingyas, certain provisions of this Foreigners Act are also against the asylum seekers or the refugees, which are leading to certain exploitative provisions. So let us see that. Firstly, section 3(2) part sub E. It is regarding administrative detention. What is administrative detention? It is any kind of detention which is there without a proper trial. If a person is detained by the authorities without affording them a chance to go to court for proper trial, then that is called administrative detention. Again, section 14 is for criminal imprisonment. If anyone has committed a crime and then they have to go to jail for that, that is under section 14 for any foreigner. This is applicable to foreigners. Again, section 3(2)(c) is for deportation. Deportation simply means that any person who has come to a foreign country and not legally, then that person might be deported back to their home countries. That is called deportation. So these sections or these provisions of Foreigners Act 1946, the author says that they are in contrary to what are the rights and obligations which the country has in regarding to the foreigners or the refugees who have come to that particular host country. Again, yet another issue is that not just only the adults but even the women and children are holed up in these detention centers. For example, in Jammu only 250 women and children are there. So now these children, since India is a signatory to UN Convention on Child Rights, they are also entitled to certain basic rights which are there in this UN Convention on Child Rights. First of all, UN Convention on Child Rights, it was adopted in November of 1989 and India ratified it 3 years later in December of 1992. The Article 6 of the Convention on Child Rights says that every child has an inherent right to life, to survive and to develop. So therefore, if India has signed this convention, then it is obliged to protect children who have come with their adult refugees or asylum seekers. But the author says that the people who are living in these Jammu or Delhi detention centers, they are not being given basic rights and even the children are suffering. For example, many of these children, they are denied basic education. They are denied basic liberty. Many of them, they are born even in these holding centers and they don't even know that there is a world beyond the walls of these detention centers. In fact, many of these children, they have been separated and they have been sent to the juvenile justice homes. What are juvenile justice homes? See, as per the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act of 2015, any child who has committed any kind of crime is called a juvenile in conflict with law. That is juvenile in conflict with law. That child would be sent to juvenile justice homes for correction and for reformation. But then here in this case, the Rohingya children, they have not committed any crime. They are just suffering for no mistake of theirs. And therefore, sending them to juvenile justice homes is a travesty against justice. In fact, these juvenile justice homes, they are actually having criminals who have done certain crimes, maybe heinous in nature also. And therefore, sending these children in the company of these criminals would not be in the best interest of these children and their further development. And therefore, the author gives us certain prescriptions for what should be done so that we can protect the asylum seekers and refugees in India. The author says that first of all, we need to uphold their right to life as well as development. We need to immediately release these people from detention because there is no point keeping them in detention if they have not committed any crime. In fact, the government of India's internal guidelines, which were released in 2011, says that in case of any refugee who have been detained, they must be released within 6 months after their biometric details have been collected. There can be certain conditions. For example, they might be asked to provide a local surety. It should be seen that they had exhibited good behavior when they were inside that detention center or the holding center. And they might be asked to report the nearest police station every month if required. But then again, they should not be kept in detention for more than 6 months. And the government authorities are not following their own internal guidelines. So that is why the author says that we need to take certain steps. For example, even the National Human Rights Commission, it needs to see to it that the refugee detention centers, the conditions in these centers should not be exploitative in nature. In fact, the author says that we need to appoint ombudsmen so that anyone who are having any kind of grievance should look into the conditions and try to see to it that the conditions are in favor of development of the children and the people who are holed up in these detention centers. So that is the crux of this article. Now on the basis of this, let's see what is the main question. The question is, Rohingyas persecution has led to the rising demands of a government policy to deal with refugees and asylum seekers in India. critically analyze. So you have to analyze critically that whether there is a requirement for the government policy regarding refusal of asylum seekers or not. You have to also see to it that the light of existing laws and regulations dealing with the issue. So if you want, you can write the answers in the comment box also. We have replied to the answers which have already been written in the comment section. And also if you have written it on a paper, then you can scan it and send it to us at prepezee@gmail.com so that we can give you detailed feedback and you can improve upon your answer writing. So if you like this article, please like, share and subscribe, and thank you.